the second half of the 19th century, a new art movement labeled as Symbolism developed. This does not refer to the idea of iconography that artworks are full of relatively well understood symbols, like identifying Mary by her blue robe, Saint Peter by his keys, or understanding that the goldfinch in this work by Raphael refers to the crucifixion of Christ. In contrast, symbolist artists try to express their ideas through personal, obscure, and ambiguous symbols and expressions. The 19th century writer Stéphane Mallarmé described it in the following way: "The artist depicts not the thing, but the effect it produces. It's based on intuition, fantasy, and imagination. It does not try to focus on the things we readily observe, but on the unconscious part of our brain, the unusual and inexplicable things. Look, for example, at this work entitled Plague from 1898 by Arnold Böcklin. It tries to connect to some of our inner feelings of fear, desperation, and lack of control." Symbolist artists usually wanted the viewer to interpret their painting in their own way. They did not want to tell us what we have to see or feel when looking at it. Here's, for example, The Wounded Angel from 1903 by Hugo Simberg. He refused to explain the meaning of this painting, insisting that was up to each viewer. When I look at it, I may use words like somberness and melancholy to describe it, but you may come up with completely different associations. And just to make the point clear here, I will contradict what I just said. This is the Garden of Death, also by Simberg. In this case, he made an exception and did share what his idea behind it was. In a short note, he described it as showing the place where the dead end up before going to heaven. It's not much, but in combination with the title The Garden of Death, it becomes a little bit easier to interpret. In the remainder of this video, I will explain symbolism in more detail and compare it to the artistic movements before it, like Realism, Romanticism, and the Pre-Raphaelites. The Symbolism movement was a reaction to another 19th century movement that had become popular around the middle of the 19th century. Artists had started to move away from idealism and move towards realism and naturalism. In 1849, Gustave Courbet painted A Burial at Ornans, an enormous painting measuring 3 by 6.5 meters, realistically showing a burial scene in the small town of Ornans. Before this painting, it was completely unheard of to dedicate such a large canvas to such an unimportant moment from daily life. This was not a burial of some important historical figure, but rather an unknown man from the lower or middle class. Similarly, The Gleaners from 1857 by Jean-François Millet depicts 3 peasants picking up stray stalks of wheat after the harvest. The symbolists, in contrast, didn't want to depict the daily reality, but wanted to capture dreamy, spiritual, and deep emotions. Like, how do you capture the concept of anxiety? Well, that's not easy, but Edvard Munch managed to capture it in his iconic paintings of the Scream. It's unconventional, it was largely misunderstood for a while, but eventually people have started to understand the brilliance of such a piece. So, whereas symbolism was a direct response to the development of realism and naturalism in countries like Belgium and France, it is in some way a continuation of the Romanticism movement, where people did use symbols and allegories. Compare, for example, 2 famous paintings of the Kiss. On the left is the version from 1859 by Francesco Hayes, and on the right the version of 1907 by Gustav Klimt. Now, Hayes' painting can be classified under the Romanticism style, while Klimt's work is considered a symbolist work. Of course, these are only classifications that we have given later in time, and neither of these works perfectly represent their art movement, but it may help to understand the difference between Romanticism and Symbolism. The Kiss by Hayes is an allegorical work representing the unification of Italy in the middle of the 19th century. The idea is beautiful, but relatively straightforward. Two people who are kissing, where the emphasis is on the kiss rather than the identity of the man and woman. They are united with each other. After this little explanation, most people would interpret the work in a fairly similar way. The meaning of the kiss of Klimt, on the other hand, is not as clear at first sight. It is not simply an allegory, it's something deeper and more complicated. It instead tries to capture a more complex feeling and expression of a particular state of mind. Is it love, intimacy, or sexuality that is expressed here? I actually have this painting on my wall at home, and I still interpret this painting in different ways over time, sometimes changing day by day. The key here is that Klimt has chosen a composition that is not very clear and is filled with many different motifs and patterns which do not have very straightforward interpretations. And while The Kiss is a pretty cheerful painting, the average symbolist painting has something more dark to it. Like the Four Horsemen of the Apocalypse from 1887 by Viktor Vasnetsov will not put a smile on our faces. Just like The Evil Mothers from 1894 by Giovanni Segantini. One philosopher and art historian, Michael Francis Gibbon, explained it as follows. Symbolists rather prefer the moon over the sun, the fall over spring, standing over streaming water, and rain over a blue sky. And it resonated with many people, which is a reason why The Owl of the Dead by Arnold Böcklin has become such a popular painting. Like most art movements, there is still quite a diversity of art labeled as symbolism, and the boundaries are not crystal clear. For example, the Pre-Raphaelites already incorporated some of the ideas that the symbolists would embrace. Artists like Dante Gabriel Rossetti already tried to express some of these deeper feelings in mysterious ways, though they had still tied it to particular stories from mythology or contemporary poems, and the symbols used in their art were more mainstream. Symbolists move one step further by making things ambiguous on purpose, like a puzzle that everyone can try to decipher in their own way. It often relates to topics that are hard to describe otherwise. Like, how would you describe the state of the world at this moment? Sometimes it's just more effective to capture that in an image than using many words for it. Well, I'll leave it here for this moment. There's much more to say about symbolism, which I will do in the next video. I'd love to hear your thoughts and questions about this art movement in the comment section down below, and together try to get a better understanding of this not so straightforward art movement. Finally, if you enjoyed this video and want to support the channel, please hit that thumbs up button, subscribe, and hit the notification bell if you have not done so. Thanks for watching.